Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. We are looking at Ben's Homelite 750 here. Sent it in for repair to get it running, and I'm going to say it's been a little while since this saw has run, because there was kind of a goop on the front that leaked during shipping, and that doesn't smell great. I've smelled worse, but it sure doesn't smell great. So I went ahead and pulled it over a little bit to see if the compression was good and the rope stayed out. And honestly, I'm not sure I felt okay about the compression. It rolled over too easy compared to the one I've got. So I'm wondering if the compression release valve is stuck or what. So we're just going to have to get into this thing and do some diagnosis. We get the starter off first. We know that thing's got a problem. Minimum a recoil spring. Because this hasn't even... Well, that's right, number 5. This hasn't even tried to recoil. Pretty clean though inside. That I'm impressed with. Yeah, that spring's blown. No question about that. And no spring action at all. Let's see if I can recreate. There we go. That's pulling over way too easy. Way too easy. These are a high compression saw. I think from the factory they had 180 psi. And that was no 180. So before I make any brash assumptions, I think I'm going to check and see if there's a spark plug in here. There it is. Of course, that grommet stuck to the plug naturally. That should have stayed in the transformer here. About half the time they don't. You guys will find this ignition system on everything from a 350 up to this 750. So, on one hand, that makes it a little easier to find parts, because if you have to sacrifice a 350 or 360 to get ignition parts for one of these big saws, the guy's not going to feel too bad about that. At least I don't. Alright, so the grommet in the air filter is definitely blown out, and actually this is one of the better fixes I've seen. This looks like some sort of synthetic rubber or something on either side of the filter to sandwich it in there, and looks like what's left of an attempted grommet repair. I've got some that fit this really well, so assuming that we get everything tightened up. Now you can't see any part of the decompression valve with the carburetor plate in place, so we're going to go ahead and take that off too. This is also what holds the carb down, so you can't run it without this plate on here unless you take the bracket and bolt the carb back down. Alright, well that valve is moving. I'm not hearing a hiss from up here. Yeah, I'm starting to worry about what we're going to find in here. Gotta remember how much stuff has got to come off of this to get the muffler apart, or get the muffler off of here. I really want to see. We'll look from the top first. I'm amazed that these hoses, other than the fuel hose, oh yeah, This has definitely been sitting for a while. This hose is some of the, well, it was clear. And it's now garbage. That's right. It's been so long since I've worked on one of these. Gotta get the choke rod or knob off here in order to get the rod out. That's one of those little clips you want to try and not lose. Come on, you. I'll knock it off. These little clips are frequently a pain in the ass. Almost got it. There we go. There we go. The top side of that piston looks good. That's an odd... I'll have to go to my IPL. This appears to be a homemade gasket on the bottom of this carburetor. Typically these things just seal to the intake boot. And that boot looks shrunken. Or something. It's sitting down lower than the depth control. I can see why this was put on. Well, we have ourselves a nice little mystery saw here. What I'm hoping is that I can avoid taking the whole throttle handle tank off. But I'm probably just wishful thinking there. I don't think I got a way around that. But we shall see. Just that twice. You know, you have those days where even a thumb wheel on a crescent wrench doesn't work right. I guess today's that day for me. These things from the 350 up have some commonality in design. It's not a huge amount of parts interchange beyond the ignition and the fuel caps and kind of crap like that, but the way they're put together with the tank sandwiching the front part of the engine, the separate throttle handle, and then the brace that goes underneath. So we're going to luck out and I can get this. Should have set that further up. I get a second opportunity to work an adjustable wrench and not look like a jack. 3 miles long. There we go. Like I say, apparently it's just one of those days where if I can do something dumb, I'm going to do it. Alright, let's have a look. That piston looks fine. So we have a regular mystery on our hands here. See if I can get you guys in there. I can't tell why we don't have compression right off. But I'm starting to wonder, it's got old fuel evident there on the piston. I'm wondering if I don't feel much ridge from those rings. I wonder if they're seized in the bore. I mean, that's just, yeah, that's rolling over way too easily. That's not right. There's no compression there at all. Okay, well, the good news is there's no scoring on the cylinder. I'm going to assume that it's a simple case of the rings being seized. Hopefully I can get them out and freed up. So this is already way too long. I'll end this video here, finish tearing this down, and get that piston soaking. Okay, whoop. Well, we've got this thing torn apart, and I can't say that there's any good news. Well, there's a little bit of good news, I guess. We definitely have piston scoring. It's not where you normally expect to see it, but it does make sense, and I'll explain that in a minute. But look at that thing. That's why we had no compression. The piston has moved enough aluminum up over the top of the rings that the ring landings are destroyed, and the rings are really tight in the groove there. If you look at the other side, it's kind of got the same type of stuff happening, not nearly as bad. If the whole thing looked like this, I'd be tempted to dump a new set of rings on it if they can be sourced. But given how it looks on the other side, I think that would be about as productive as pissing into the wind. So the potential good news is the cylinder doesn't look terrible. There are some scratches down there, so it's never going to be quite as good as what it was brand new, but they're not. I mean, I can catch my nail on them, but that chrome lining is a hell of a lot harder than the aluminum is. So I think with one of the aftermarket pistons that are available out there, I want to say with shipping those run around 50 bucks. I think that'll make enough compression to run pretty well. But yeah, so what happened here, I think, was a failure of the air filter. So this is how everything would be oriented. You've got your intake right there that's going to, as the piston pulls back, fuel and air go down into that cylinder. But then the piston, as it moves forward, is going to draw when it hits those transfer ports up on either side. You can see how that wall is closed off there. Well, these score marks are dead center in line with those transfer ports in the cylinder. So I'm going to assume the air filter at one point allowed a whole bunch of dirt to come through the engine, and it got warm, and that's when it started moving aluminum. So, and that's also why there'd be some scratching down in the cylinder. So that's where we're at. Other things of note, I don't know how torn this boot was before I started taking it apart, but if it tears on disassembly, it was shot and needed replaced. So I think I'm going to stop right here, kind of get all this stuff gathered up. I'm going to get a hold of Ben, see if he wants to try an aftermarket piston and reassembling and running it with that. Oh, one other thing of note, 2 of the 3 clutch shoes are missing their lining. You can see that one still has it. That does not. I have no idea how much fun it's going to be to try and find shoes for that 3-shoe clutch, but I have a sneaking suspicion that won't be a whole lot of fun either. So, like I say, I'm going to get hold of Ben, kind of let him know what's going on, and we will go from there.